Why does life feel different after you cross $30,000 a year, even though you were clearly not rich? That question confuses millions of people because nothing dramatic seems to change on the outside. You still work, you still pay bills, you still worry. Yet internally, something quietly shifts. After studying real income patterns, budgets, and behaviors, one thing becomes clear. $30,000 is not a wealth milestone, it is a psychological one. Below that level, money controls almost every decision you make. Above it, money starts to loosen its grip, just enough for your mind to breathe. This video is not about getting rich fast or chasing unrealistic numbers. It's about understanding why crossing this income line changes how you think, how you plan, and how you react to financial pressure. Most people feel the change, but they never understand it, and because of that, they sabotage what comes next. If you've ever wondered why working harder did not immediately make life easier, or why some people suddenly accelerate after a certain point, you are about to see the missing piece. By the end of this video, you will understand why $30,000 does not transform your lifestyle, but it can completely transform your financial trajectory if you recognize what is actually happening. And this shift explains decisions most people never realize they are making. That internal shift we just talked about leads many people to a dangerous assumption that earning more money automatically fixes everything. It sounds logical. If money caused the stress, then more money should remove it. But this belief is exactly what traps most people right after their income increases. The truth is, income alone does not create stability. It only amplifies behavior. When someone reaches around $30,000 a year, they finally feel a bit of relief. Bills are paid with less panic, small emergencies are no longer catastrophic, and because of that relief, the brain quickly concludes, I just need more of this. This is where the illusion begins. People assume the next raise will bring peace, the next promotion will bring freedom, and the next income level will solve the anxiety they still feel. But the anxiety often remains, just disguised in different forms. Instead of worrying about survival, people start worrying about maintaining a lifestyle, keeping up appearances, or avoiding slipping backward. This is why so many people earn more than ever and still feel stuck. They are running the same mental software, just with bigger numbers. Without understanding what actually changes after $30,000, higher income becomes a treadmill, not an escape. And to see why this illusion is so powerful, we need to see what life really looks like before crossing this line. Before $30,000 a year, life operates in survival mode, whether people admit it or not. Financial decisions are not strategic, they are reactive. Every paycheck is already assigned before it even arrives, and most of that money is spoken for by necessities. Rent, food, transportation, utilities, and minimum debt payments consume nearly everything. In this phase, money feels fragile. One unexpected expense can throw the entire system into chaos. A car repair, a medical bill, or even a few missed work hours can trigger anxiety that lingers for weeks or months. Because of this constant pressure, the brain focuses on short-term relief, not long-term progress. This is why advice like just invest or think long-term feels unrealistic to people below this level. When survival is the priority, the mind is not designed to plan 5 or 10 years ahead. It is designed to make it to the end of the month. Spending decisions are often emotional, not irresponsible, but driven by exhaustion and stress. Time also feels scarce. Working more hours seems like the only solution, even when it leads to burnout. There is little mental space left to learn, research, or experiment. Every decision carries weight, and mistakes feel expensive. Understanding this stage is critical because it explains why progress feels so slow early on. It's not a lack of discipline or intelligence, it's the environment. And once that pressure begins to ease even slightly, the way people think about money starts to change in subtle but powerful ways. When income crosses the $30,000 mark, the first real change is not financial, but mental. The numbers on paper do not look impressive, but the constant sense of urgency begins to fade. For the first time, money problems stop feeling immediate and life-threatening. This shift creates something most people have not felt in years,
mental breathing room. Bills are still there, but they no longer dominate every thought. The fear of one mistake ruining everything starts to weaken. That small reduction in pressure changes how the brain processes decisions. Instead of reacting automatically, people begin to pause. They start asking questions they never had the space to ask before. Do I really need this? What happens if I wait? Is there a better option? These questions are subtle, but they signal a deeper transformation. This is the moment when people move from pure survival to basic control. Not comfort, not wealth, control. And control is powerful because it allows thinking beyond the next paycheck. However, this new mental state is fragile. Without awareness, it can easily be misused. Many people mistake this breathing room for freedom and rush to fill it with new expenses. Others sense that something important has changed, but cannot explain it. To understand what determines which path people take, we need to look at how decisions start to matter differently after this point. Once the survival pressure eases, even slightly, financial decisions begin to carry a different kind of weight. After $30,000, choices are no longer just about getting through the month, they start shaping what the next few years will look like. At this stage, small decisions quietly compound. Choosing to save a little, delay a purchase, or learn a new skill may not feel dramatic, but the long-term impact becomes real. For the first time, people are not just reacting to life, they are influencing it. This is also where responsibility increases. When income is low, many outcomes feel out of your control. After this point, it becomes harder to blame circumstances alone. The gap between where you are and where you could be starts to appear, and that realization can be uncomfortable. Some people respond by becoming intentional. They track spending, think ahead, and slowly build stability. Others avoid the discomfort by ignoring decisions altogether, drifting back into autopilot with slightly better surroundings. The difference between these two reactions is subtle but decisive. It is not about intelligence or education, it's about awareness. Recognizing that decisions now matter is what separates progress from stagnation. This is also why this stage feels confusing. Life is no longer chaotic, but it is not secure either. You are standing in between, and as this space opens up, another shift happens. Money stops being the only problem you think about, and deeper questions begin to surface. After $30,000, something unexpected happens. Financial stress does not disappear, but it no longer consumes every mental resource. And when money stops taking up all the space, other questions rush in to fill the silence. People begin to notice exhaustion that was always there but never acknowledged. They start questioning how much time work is taking, how little energy remains at the end of the day, and whether the routine they built is sustainable. Before this point, survival masked these thoughts. Now they become impossible to ignore. This is where confusion often sets in. Many assume that reaching a higher income should automatically feel satisfying. When it doesn't, they think something is wrong with them. In reality, this discomfort is a sign of growth. It means money is no longer the only constraint shaping decisions. Purpose enters the conversation, so does freedom. People begin asking whether their effort is moving them forward or simply keeping them busy. These questions can feel dangerous because they challenge familiar structures, even if those structures are limiting. This moment creates a fork in the road. Some people use this awareness to redesign their lives intentionally. Others suppress it by increasing spending, distractions, or commitments. They mistake movement for progress. Understanding this shift is critical because it explains why earning more does not automatically bring fulfillment. Money removes one layer of pressure, revealing deeper layers underneath. And once these questions appear, a new idea begins to surface naturally. If money is no longer the main problem, maybe it can become part of the solution. That's when investing quietly enters the picture. When investing first enters people's minds, it rarely starts with confidence. It starts with curiosity. After $30,000, money finally stops disappearing instantly, and the question shifts from "how do I survive" to "what else could this money do?" At this stage, investing is not about charts, stocks, or complex strategies. It is about the realization that saving alone feels limited. People begin to sense that effort should work beyond the hours they personally put in. Even without understanding the mechanics, the idea of money growing on its own becomes appealing. This is also where fear shows up. Many people hesitate because they believe investing is only for experts or wealthy individuals. Others worry about making mistakes and losing what they worked hard to earn. These fears are natural, especially for those who spent years in survival mode. What matters here is not immediate action, but a shift in perspective. Money starts being seen as a tool instead of a shield. Instead of only protecting against emergencies, it becomes something that can build future options. Some people respond by learning. They read, listen, and slowly educate themselves. Others delay indefinitely, waiting for the perfect moment or more income. Ironically, this hesitation often costs more than small early mistakes ever would. This stage is fragile because it sits between awareness and execution. The outcome depends on whether curiosity turns into intention or fades into background noise. And just as people begin thinking about growing their money, another force quietly pushes in the opposite direction. The same income increase that creates opportunity also invites a powerful temptation, one that derails more progress than almost anything else: lifestyle inflation. Lifestyle inflation does not arrive suddenly. It slips in quietly, disguised as reward and comfort. After $30,000, people feel they have earned the right to upgrade their lives, and in many ways they have. The danger is not enjoying progress, but losing awareness of it. Small upgrades feel harmless: a slightly better apartment, more frequent eating out, new subscriptions that promise convenience or entertainment. Individually, none of these decisions seem significant. Together, they quietly absorb the extra income that once created breathing room. What makes lifestyle inflation so powerful is that it feels justified. Life is no longer just about survival, so spending feels like a form of progress. But comfort can quickly turn into obligation. Fixed expenses rise, flexibility shrinks, and the same pressure that once came from low income returns, now driven by higher commitments. This is why many people earn more but feel no freer. They did not lose money, they lost margin. And without margin, growth becomes impossible. Every raise is already spent before it arrives, leaving no room for investing, learning, or strategic choices. The most dangerous part is that lifestyle inflation rarely feels like a mistake. It feels normal. Everyone around you seems to be doing the same thing, reinforcing the behavior as acceptable and expected. Avoiding this trap does not require extreme frugality. It requires intentional restraint. Maintaining simplicity while income rises preserves the space needed for long-term growth. And once people recognize how easily comfort can replace progress, another realization follows. Working harder to support a growing lifestyle is not a sustainable solution. This insight sets the stage for a deeper shift in thinking about effort, time, and leverage. After recognizing how easily lifestyle inflation consumes extra income, many people reach a sobering conclusion. Working more hours is no longer the answer. In fact, it often makes the problem worse. More work usually supports a bigger lifestyle, not greater freedom. At this stage, people begin to feel the limits of time. There are only so many hours in a day, and trading them endlessly for money starts to feel inefficient. The realization is subtle but powerful. Effort alone does not scale. No matter how disciplined or motivated someone is, time eventually becomes the bottleneck. This is where the concept of leverage quietly enters the picture. Instead of asking, "How can I work more?" the question becomes, "How can my effort work better?" People start noticing the difference between income that depends entirely on their presence and income that continues without constant attention.
This shift does not mean abandoning work or ambition. It means rethinking how value is created. Skills, systems, and investments in ownership begin to matter more than sheer hours worked. The focus moves from exhaustion to efficiency. For many, this is the first time they understand why some people seem to advance faster with less visible effort. It is not luck, it is structure. They are building systems that multiply results instead of repeating the same actions. This realization naturally leads to a broader perspective on money itself. If time is limited and leverage is essential, then income alone cannot be the main metric anymore. What truly matters is not how much you earn, but how effectively you deploy what you earn. And that changes the entire game.
Once people understand that time is limited and leverage matters, their focus shifts again. Income is no longer the main obsession. Instead, attention turns to usage. Two people can earn the exact same amount and end up in completely different financial positions simply because of how they deploy their money. At this stage, money starts to behave like a decision amplifier. Every dollar sent toward consumption disappears. Every dollar directed toward growth creates options. The difference is not always visible immediately, but it compounds quietly in the background. This is why some people feel stuck despite steady raises. Their income grows, but their financial position does not. Others, earning the same or even less, begin building momentum. They prioritize flexibility, reduce friction, and protect their ability to make future choices. Here, awareness becomes the key skill. People start asking better questions. Does this expense expand my options or limit them? Is this solving a short-term desire or supporting a long-term goal? These questions reshape behavior without requiring extreme discipline. This shift also reduces stress. When money is intentionally allocated, uncertainty decreases. You stop feeling like your finances are leaking in invisible places. Instead, you gain clarity, even if progress is still gradual. Importantly, this stage is not about perfection. Mistakes still happen. What changes is correction speed. When usage is intentional, errors are noticed early and adjusted quickly. And once someone experiences the control that comes from using money strategically, it becomes difficult to go back. This awareness creates a new baseline. From here on, financial decisions are no longer passive, they are deliberate. And that is why people who truly internalize this stage rarely return to living on the edge. Once financial decisions become deliberate, something fundamental changes. People no longer see money as something that simply happens to them. They see it as something they actively manage. This shift creates a new mental baseline that is very difficult to abandon. After $30,000, once someone experiences even a small amount of control, going back to constant financial chaos feels unbearable. It is not the comfort they miss, but the clarity. Knowing where money goes, having a plan, and understanding trade-offs creates psychological safety that pure income never could. This is why people who cross this stage often become intolerant of living on the edge again. Missed payments, impulsive spending, and financial uncertainty start to feel emotionally expensive, even if they were once normal. The mind adapts upward, and old patterns lose their appeal. This does not mean people never struggle again. Setbacks still happen. Income can drop. Unexpected expenses appear. The difference is response. Instead of panic, there is adjustment. Instead of avoidance, there is correction. This awareness also changes standards. People become more selective with commitments, expenses, and even opportunities. They understand that not every upgrade is progress, and not every increase is worth the trade-off. Once this internal standard is established, it becomes self-reinforcing. Each intentional decision strengthens the habit of control. And that is why, for most people, crossing this threshold is not something they forget. It becomes part of how they think. But there is still one critical misunderstanding that holds many people back at this level. To move forward, it is essential to recognize what $30,000 truly represents and what it never will. It is important to be very clear about what $30,000 represents, because misunderstanding this point creates false expectations. This income level does not bring luxury, status, or financial independence. It does not eliminate stress or guarantee comfort. What it does is far more subtle and far more important. $30,000 changes the rules of the game. It moves you from pure survival into the early stages of strategy. You are no longer fighting just to stay afloat. You are learning how to steer. That distinction matters more than the number itself. Many people make the mistake of treating this level as an arrival point. They relax too much, upgrade too quickly, and assume momentum will continue automatically. Others feel disappointed, expecting life to feel dramatically different, and conclude that progress is pointless. Both reactions come from the same misunderstanding. This level is not about reward, it is about positioning. It gives you access to better decisions, not better outcomes yet. It gives you options, not answers. What happens next depends entirely on how you use that access. If you see $30,000 as enough, growth usually stops. If you see it as a foundation, growth becomes possible. The number itself does nothing. Your interpretation of it does everything. And this is where many people quietly sabotage themselves, not because they lack income, but because they misread what this stage requires. To understand that mistake, we need to look at the single error that keeps people stuck right here, year after year. The most common mistake people make after reaching $30,000 is assuming that time is now on their side. Because life feels more stable, urgency disappears. Progress becomes something to think about later, not something to act on now. This quiet delay is what traps people for years. At this stage, the danger is not bad decisions, but no decisions. People drift. They tell themselves they will start investing when income increases, learn new skills when life slows down, or plan seriously when things feel clearer. Meanwhile, nothing actually changes. This false sense of safety creates stagnation. Without pressure, discipline weakens. Without intention, habits revert. The same routines repeat, just more comfortably. Months turn into years, and progress plateaus without obvious warning signs. Another version of this mistake is overconfidence. Some believe that because they survived financial struggle, they will naturally figure things out later. But financial growth is not automatic. It requires structure, not just resilience. What makes this error fatal is how invisible it is. There is no crisis to signal danger, no immediate pain. Everything feels fine, and that is exactly why people stay stuck. Breaking this pattern requires recognizing that stability is not progress, it is an opportunity. If it is not used intentionally, it expires. Once people understand this, urgency returns, but in a healthier form, not panic, but purpose. And that clarity leads to the final shift, the moment when people stop reacting to their finances and start deciding who they want to become. Once urgency returns in a healthy way, everything begins to align. People stop asking what they should do next and start asking who they are becoming through their decisions. This is the point where money shifts from being a problem to being a mirror. After $30,000, your habits matter more than your income. Your direction matters more than your speed. Every choice, even small ones, reinforces an identity. You are either becoming someone who uses stability to grow or someone who uses it to stay comfortable. This reflection is uncomfortable because it removes excuses. The environment is no longer the main obstacle. The gap between intention and action becomes visible. But this discomfort is also empowering. It means the outcome is no longer random. At this stage, progress is not about dramatic changes. It is about consistency. One intentional decision repeated over time creates momentum. One avoided decision repeated creates stagnation. The difference is rarely visible in the short term, but it becomes undeniable over years. This is why two people can cross the same income level and end up in opposite places. One uses clarity to design a future, the other uses comfort to delay it.
Neither choice feels extreme in the moment, but both compound relentlessly. Understanding this reframes the entire journey. The question is no longer whether $30,000 is enough. The real question is whether you will use this stage as a turning point or a resting place. And that decision, once made, quietly shapes everything that follows.